So as you may remember, in the previous video, I tested the AMD stock cooler, but now we're going to come to the Arctic Esports Duo with thanks to Arctic. That was provided to me. And as you can see, that's a cooler with a push-pull configuration. Not every cooler has that. That gives you a slight improvement as well. And what we're going to do is we're going to test the Arctic Esports Duo with two very popular CPUs. One budget CPU that's a little bit more easier to cool, the 5600X Ryzen AM4, still on a 7nm process, and the Ryzen 5800X3D, a specific CPU geared towards gaming that tends to get a little bit warmer and it's a little bit harder to cool because it has this X3D cache, which is kind of layered into the CPU from AMD, and that makes it a little bit more demanding. And the first thing I always like to do is just jump onto the desktop and let the system run and idle for a while to get my bearings. Okay, where are we temperature wise in idle? This is all tested with the Arctic MX thermal paste, as well as at a 21 degree Celsius room temperature. I'll show you the Fahrenheit in a second. And as you can see, that is really cool. 41 degrees Celsius is really cool for a CPU with X3D cache. Power is always around 25 to 30 watts. And the RPM are super low. Here are some minor background tasks. Guys, it's not avoidable to have it 100%. But as you can see, this Esports Duo perfectly fine for the CPUs with the X3D cache. And comparing the cooling performance of these two CPUs, you can see, yes, the 5600X runs a little bit cooler. They use about the same amount of energy, but there's not such a big difference. And the 21 degrees Celsius are approximately 7 degrees Fahrenheit if you're not using the metric system. So guys, if you're an office user, this CPU cooler is more than enough. Let's have a quick look what happens when you throw a game at this, because obviously if you run a game, power consumption goes up significantly across the board. And yeah, because the graphics card, depending on what graphics card you have, that creates a lot of heat in the case. And then the CPU, there is a lot more load on the CPU, which over time, what I usually do is I just let the game run for 10 minutes. I walk around a little bit and then check back on the desktop. And as you can see, super nice temperature, 62 degrees Celsius, around 55 to 62 degrees Celsius. And yeah, the graphics card maybe uses 180 watts. That works great, guys. Maybe I would definitely tweak the fan curve a little bit. I think the fan curve, the standard fan curve of my motherboard is too aggressive for this CPU cooler combo. So that's really what I would recommend you. If you have CPUs with the X3D cache, I would always tweak the fan curve a little bit because they tend to have different heat characteristics. And after jumping around a little bit, switching around a few settings, I found that at a WQHD resolution with an RTX 4070, I was ballparking around 62 degrees Celsius or 145 degrees Fahrenheit. But since the fan curve was a little bit too aggressive, the RPMs for my taste were a little bit too high, around 1700. So I would lower the RPM by setting a higher temperature, and then I have a great combination where it's really pleasant to use. Interestingly, the CPUs, they don't use that much different of a power draw. They're all hovering around 55, 60 watts, depending whether you bump up the ray tracing or some minor things. Always keep in mind, I also do the screen recording in the back. So yeah, that's the values. I think that's an excellent values, and it's definitely much better cooling solution than the AMD stock cooler, which you never should use with a processor that has the X3D cache, and which I also wouldn't use with a 5600X if you are into gaming. So the Esports Duo is a solid solution. Maybe next up we're going to do some other CPU coolers as well as water cooling. Hit that subscribe, let me know what coolers you want to see, and I see you as a subscriber in the next video.